Hello and welcome to another tutorial in my Godot XR Tools series. In this video, we are going to look at how we're supporting the ability to pick up and interact with objects using the XR Tools library. Before we get started on that, however, it is important to note that Godot XR Tools version 3.1.0 was released not long ago. We will be using this new version in this series going forward. This new version has many improvements, including changes to how the grabbing logic works, that we will be looking into today. Another change I quickly want to note are the improvements to the hands. In the video playing in the background, you can see one of the new hand models added to the plugin. These new models come with a set of skins and a number of animation files that can be used to adjust the poses of the hands. We will have a closer look at this in the near future. I've already updated our project from the last video with this new version and changed over to using the new hands. I've also added a few tables to our scene for today's purposes. A link to our project can be found in the description. We need to start with creating an object that we can pick up. Open the Scene menu and select New Inherited Scene. Go into Add-ons, then Godot XR Tools, then Objects, and finally select pickable.tscn. This sets up a scene with all the basic logic we need. We're going to create a simple cube to pick up, so we rename the top node. We add a mesh instance node to our scene, and we select a new cube mesh and give it a nice size. Next, we add a collision shape for our cube. Note that our scene already has a collision shape node. We create our box shape here. We also size this, but note that here we size our cube with extends, so we need to halve our values. We also lower the margin. The default settings in the Bullet physics engine are far too high for VR applications. The default margin amounts to a 4 cm margin, almost half the size of our cube. Lowering this value does not come without consequences, which is why we run the physics update at a much higher rate than its default. Let's save our scene at this point. We go back into our root folder and then select our objects folder. This is where we'll save our scene. Back in our main scene, we'll add a few instances of our cube object into our scene. I will add them as children to the table on which I'll place them. We simply select the scene that we just saved, and then move it into place. We'll rename this to Cube01. And now we can use Ctrl-D to duplicate the cube and make copies. Now that we have a few cubes we can pick up, we need to add our pickup functionality. We first select our left-hand controller and we add the pickup function to it. Then we do the same on our right-hand controller. We can now pick our cubes up by simply closing our hand and engaging the grip buttons on the controller. We can even throw them around a bit, very naturally. But it does stand out that the cubes are locked in place in relation to the hands instead of being properly picked up. So let's improve upon our setup. We're first going to start by making it easier to see which object we are picking up. For this we are going to add a highlight node. Note that this is added through the plus button instead of selecting a subscene. This node is made visible when our object comes into grab range. We add a new mesh instance node to our highlight node. We add a cube mesh to this as well and size it slightly bigger than our original cube. And we flip its faces. Now we create a new material on this mesh. We set this as unshaded. And then we make it yellow. This gives us a nice outline effect. Let's also rename this to highlight mesh. Next we're going to make sure our hands grab our cube properly, and we do this by adding grab points. We have separate options for each hand, and a snap point we'll get back to later. Let's start with our left hand. We unhide our node for now, which will allow us to see our hand for placement. However, our default closed hand is a fist. We want that to be different. To override the hand pose, we need to go to the hand pose property and scroll all the way down the list and select XR Tools Hand Pose Settings. When we expand the new resource, we can see that we can override the closed and open poses for our hands. Poses are stored as animation files. We can simply override our closed hand pose by loading another pose in. These are stored in add-ons, Godot XR Tools, Hands, Animations, and then for our left hand left. Today we will be using Grip Shaft. Now we don't see it immediately changing, but simply toggling the preview mode fixes this. Now we can position our hand so it nicely holds the cube. Finally, I've repeated the process for the right hand. We'll want to make our previews invisible again. Now we can see that the cube nearest to our hand is highlighted. We can also see that the cube now snaps to our hand. And that is all we have time for in today's video. In the next video, we are going to continue with our objects and look at snap points. These allow us to place objects in specific places. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, it really helps. If you want to support me more directly, please consider becoming a member of my channel. Until next time.